Welcome to the DevReady podcast. Joining me on the DevReady podcast today, I have Athin Cassiotis. I've never met Athin before. We're just meeting him for the first time. So for those of you listening, that's how this works. Athin, I'll let you introduce yourself and take it away.
Thanks, Anthony, mate. Awesome to be here as well, and I'm sure it's going to be great for everyone here. So hi, everyone. I'm Athin Cassiotis. I'm a business growth expert, investor, international speaker, coach, mentor, consultant, and podcast host as well. Look forward to interviewing Anthony on my podcast soon too, which is going to be great, the Business Growth Show. For me, I guess I'll tell a little bit about where I started, right? Because I think this is where people understand that I wasn't just, who I am today. It was very different from where I started. So I grew up in Adelaide, South Australia, like a big country town. My parents are high school teachers and wanted me to do well at school. And I started my entrepreneurial journey in year 10, about 15, selling VCD movies, good old CD burners back in the day.
I had the same journey.
Yeah, that's it. Burning like Fast and Furious #1. That's how long ago it was, among other movies, and selling them for about $10 each to my mates. And then towards the end of high school, I didn't enjoy it and ended up dropping out of year 12, my final year. And you can imagine my parents didn't like that, being high school teachers. My dad told me that I'll never be able to study. He had 3 degrees, and one of my teachers told me I'll never be successful. And, I could have technically, taken that on and made it affect me, but I won a lot of sporting championships growing up in soccer and tennis. So I was never the most naturally talented, but I'd always make myself one of the best players, right, in the team because of my work ethic and my striving for growth and improving myself. So I just basically said to myself, watch me prove you wrong. And got a job at a big environmental company at 18 years old, did a lot of big things there. And then the head office in Sydney headhunted me about 5.5 years later. They moved me to Sydney. I've been for over a decade now. And, basically was the middleman in the business development department, doing a lot of cool projects, IT projects, a lot of other things like that. And then want to learn more about business. And everyone, we would have Friday drinks and everyone would be talking about their degrees and what uni they went to. And I had nothing, right? I just worked my way up in the company and wanted to learn more about business. And I realized that one of the top universities here, UTS, I could get into the MBA and the Masters of Business Administration just based on over having 8 years of experience working, which I had at the time. Okay. So I was like, okay, well, I got to skip high school and the bachelor and basically straight to the MBA and did most of the core subjects, even though it was tough for me to study. And then there was a change of management and didn't enjoy it there anymore. So I left that company after 10.5 years and started my first business, which was waste management consulting. So I basically took all of my knowledge and take it to the market. And I got Westfield as my first big client. I helped their tender and I helped save them $4 million a year, 20 million over 5 years. Got Kmart and Target. I've been working with them for over 6 years now. Saved them millions of dollars. Coles, Defense, a lot of big brands, Officeworks and all that I've worked with, among smaller, medium people as well. And got a lot of success there. And then I'd go to networking events or business events and people would say, Athin, I've got this problem. What do you think? And I'm like, why don't you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? And they're like, that's really good. I need to write that down. Can you tell me that again? And this would happen many times in a short period, right? At all these events. And I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, I've got a very good strategic brain, memory, seeing the patterns from my experience in business, from my MBA, from my coaches and mentors that were helping me. I should start a business out of this as well. So I started business coaching mentoring about 5.5 years ago into 2019 and really been enjoying that journey and helping people from startup, from get-go, from 6, 7, and even multiple 8-figure businesses per year, all the way through, right, in 30 different industries, clients in 10 countries. So I've done that, and then towards the middle of COVID, middle 2020, I started my podcast, The Business Growth Show, which is every week now. And, for almost 250 episodes now, a lot of big names and celebrities and stuff, which has been a fun journey. I'm sure you'll agree on that side. And really just helping people. And I've done NLP Master Practitioner training, so I can help with mindset reframes, but I was saying, well, don't go and do the MBA. And, because it's 80-20 rule, right? 20% of what's in the MBA is like 80% of the result. So let me give you the 20% that's going to give you 80% of the results in all these 9 areas, my 9 keys of business, and upgrade your mindset where possible, and let's help you get you the right foundations and set you up for success, being like the GP doctor in a way. And then I get specialists like yourself as an example to come in where needed in projects or with clients to do that. And looking at acquiring businesses, do investing, a few other things like that, and speaking all over the world. So that's a bit of my journey. So it didn't always start like this, but it's always been a journey of growth, investing a lot into myself, and keep moving forward to help people grow and succeed and create wealth and freedom in the end as well.
Okay, it's quite a few touch points there in that story. So just going back to the high school, how did it, well, that would have been a bit disheartening having a teacher telling you you're not going to amount to anything or get anywhere because you're dropping out, I imagine.
Yeah, definitely. It was tough, right? Like, and I was always different at school. I think as an entrepreneur, you're normally different than most people. Like, I would do whole semester assignments in one night. I'd do an all-nighter, and I'd get decent marks for it, right? I just didn't like to study. And I think the school system, I don't know how it's changing now, but back then it was like this was the way or the highway, right? And there wasn't much fluctuation. So if you wanted to sort of do your own thing, you had different ways of doing things. They didn't really adapt to that. And yeah, to someone to tell me it's like, hey, you can't do this. It's like, what do you know, right? Like, you don't know what I've done or what I haven't done. What gives you the right to tell me I won't be successful? So I think it's that elite mentality, right? That I've won things that helped me through that time. And yes, I've failed many times, could have thrown in the towel many times, but the persistence, right, and the resilience of just keep getting back up, right, from those, that's where it started, the first one, right, the major one. But then even from there is so many times my dad's like, just move back to Adelaide and just get a job and come with me. I'm like, it's not going to happen. Right. The easy route.
Yeah. And I'm sure, having that like career in soccer and tennis, you've learned ups and downs through that, because there's a lot of ups and downs in either you're winning or you're losing. You may be in a slump. But then I'm assuming that I used to play soccer a little bit, probably not to the level you do. I have some trophies that look like yours in the back there at my parents' house still. But having the team there, I'm guessing is going to be a very different to when you're a bit tennis. I'm not sure if you're doing doubles, but the tennis is a lot more solo.
Yeah.
So probably more mentality, mindset comes into it.
Definitely. It's a great point. And I had to choose because I was well at both, but then people were training 5 times a week in tennis and I was training 2, and then I was doing soccer twice a week, and there was a gap. And I chose soccer in the end because I love the team sport, right? And I think it's more relevant to business, right? Because we can't do it all ourselves. We have to work in a team and it's more fun that way. But the tennis definitely gave me a lot of steel, because you lose a point in tennis and you're playing singles most of the time. You've got to be like, next point, switch back on, we got to win this next point, right? So it definitely helped me from a mind conditioning, talking to myself a lot, which a lot of people say now, right? Of how you got to give you good self-talk and everything to yourself in business and whatever happens. So I think tennis still helped me a lot, definitely from the mindset side. So I definitely recommend tennis as a sport. But I think from a team perspective and knowing that, okay, knowing where you fit in a team and where your best position is. It may not be necessarily where you want to play, but if that helps the team win overall, then that's the best place to be.
Yeah, and you've got the team there to help pick you up. There's the culture starts coming in, so you can map that more to a parallel of business, where the tennis is, you have to do everything on your own, and you just have to deflect whatever's happening. Like you said, pick up the next point, whatever it may be. Otherwise, you'll strike, you'll be done. Next set, you're out.
Yeah, definitely, man. It's a great game, and I recommend both for people, if you can. And one thing that I wish I did, which I'd like to do, is I've got a newborn son, 12 weeks old now, this recording. Thank you. And is I'd love to have done martial arts growing up. My wife did Wing Chun, so that's probably the third thing that I would say is for somebody, is because there's a lot of discipline and there's discipline in sport as well, which is a skill that's very important for business too.
I think from when I used to play soccer, I think the martial arts will have very different discipline to the soccer, just because it's culture, it's team, there's a bit more playfulness with everyone and talking back and whatever you do when you're training and playing with your mates. But I feel like the martial arts is a lot more strict, a lot more disciplined. It's a different sort of thing, but you'll learn very similar values at the end of the day.
Yeah, definitely, mate.
So going into stepping out on your own after that management change, what was that like? Were you thinking about doing your own business at that point? Or was it like, all right, I'm not enjoying this place anymore. I'm looking at the market. There's nothing I'm enjoying. I might as well try for myself. Or had it been something in the back of your mind? Because you said you had that entrepreneurial spirit when you were in high school a little bit as well.
Yeah, like I was quite lucky at that company that I'd work on a lot of projects to improve things. So I was sort of like a bit of an entrepreneur, where you're given a lot of leeway to do it. But towards the end, they weren't allowing that, and there was a management change. So I didn't get that freedom to be able to do that. And then I thought to myself, like, I could go work for someone else, but I'm like, well, why not start my own thing? And I did the very risky thing that I do not recommend to anybody. And I quit my job and started my business the next day. No traction, right? So I had my long service leave. I had a few months of pay in the bank and did the risky thing, right? So most ideally you have something on the side that's starting to build cash flow, and then you make a decision to either drop down days or quit, quit completely from a job. That's the more recommendation. But I backed myself, right? And I just said, you know what? When I'm very instinctive, and I think you got to understand how you make decisions. Everyone's a little bit different. My decisions are very instinctive. Like that, some people may need to feel into it, trust their gut or something a little bit more. But my instinctive decision was, that's it. I'm just going to give it a go. Like I've got a few months pay in the bank. This is the time that I can make it happen. And it was challenging, right? Like cash flow was up and down. You're like, wait a minute. I gotta find work. Then I got to do the work, and then I got to get paid for the work, and I'm not getting paid ongoing. And then, and the big change for me at the start, and this is why I've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in myself and been to many events and things like that and learned from many coaches and mentors, is one of my friends, bought a ticket to a business event boot camp for a few days and got a call a week before saying you can bring a friend for free. And he called me and he says, do you want to come to this event? And I was like, it was a few months into the business. My money was dwindling down. And this is the universe, a sign, God, whatever word you want to use, was saying, hey, Athin, this is what you need right now, right? Because you've got some mindset things holding you back, some skills that, you didn't know you needed around sales and other things like that. And I just went in like I'd paid the money. I wrote over 100 pages of notes. I implemented. Then I got Westfield as my first big client. And then I was like, wow, okay, I need to keep investing in myself, keep going to these events, getting, more coaching and mentoring. So that was a big step for me. And there were times where, I contemplated going back, and I had my parents, as I said, in my back of my mind saying all of that. But I just thought, you know what, I'm not here to quit. And I think if you never quit, you'll always succeed in the end.
If you don't give up, you don't have the chance of that failure, or to say I gave up effectively, which is what you would have learned through the resilience in sport or tennis. Like if you're down 5-love in a set and you give up, it's over. But you can claw back and you can come back and it can be 3-2 at the end of the game.
Yeah, I was playing paddle the other day with my mate, and it's similar to tennis, right? And we were 5-1 up, and against these other two, you play doubles. That's how it's played. And then I sort of relaxed because I was like, oh, we're killing these guys. And then they got it back to 5-all, right? And then we got to 6-all, and we're in the tiebreak, and we were down at a set point to lose the set. But then my little bit just I turned on, right, at the end in the tiebreak, and I was diving for shots, and we ended up winning for it and everything like that to do. So I think it's not being, resting and just thinking it's going to be easy, because there's always going to be challenges, and you've got to be able to step up to the plate and be on for when you meet someone, because whether it's sport, whether it's in business, there's going to be challenges, and, it could be one person, one introduction, one podcast interview, whatever that is, that could completely change your journey in life, in business and everything like that. And you've got to be ready to build that rapport, build that relationship, and take the most of that opportunity of that relationship and see the opportunities in that. And then from there, anything is possible, right? So being able to step up to the plate when you need to is really important.
Yeah, and that's well said there. So it's the way, when you're touching on business before, having the ups and downs, everyone experiences that when they start, especially if you've never run a business before. So a lot of it is learning as you go. So I mentioned, we started our business in my final year of uni, so I was 22, and that's all we've ever done. We didn't know anything about business. This is the best time. There's no risk. We live at home with our parents. Why not? Well, you had a few months buffer, so you had that similar leeway almost, but you had a more pressing deadline than I did at that point. But having to manage the work and do the work, and then not take your foot off the pedal, because as soon as you win work, then you start doing the work, you take your foot off the sales pedal and you do the implementation, and then all right, this is done, but there's nothing else in the pipeline anymore. Then you go back and you get that seesaw effect. So that's where never taking your foot off the pedal and just keep going, and you never know where an opportunity is going to arise. You may think it's luck, you may think it's God, or however anyone listening wants to interpret it, but you get presented with opportunities, and you mentioned you just have to capitalize on them.
Yeah, I love it, mate. Completely agree with what you're saying there. And, in those times when you're at the start, it's you got to realize that, with your identity, it's very important because a lot of people, initially identified themselves in the job that they were in, right? Then you've got to change that identity to a business owner identity and going, well, for me, the role of the business owner is to grow the business, right? So like sales is the number one important skill, right? To be able to do that there. And then marketing obviously, flows on to create the sales. So that's really what we need to do. So yes, at the start, we might be wearing multiple hats and having to implement. But it's like making sure, well, if we can get team members to help with the implementation of things, it's us to be able to grow the business and step away from not just implementing. So I think that's a key identity and mindset shift change that everyone needs to do. And then the next stage, ideally, is being an investor. So going, even from an investor from your business and going, well, if I was on the outside, would I invest into this business? How would I want this business to run? So someone would be like, oh, that's a great business, right? So setting all the processes and the systems as if you were going to sell it, right, is a great way to think about your business, even if you never will. But if you do it like that and create like an automated machine, so to speak, minimal issues, high quality, all of that, then it's a very powerful business. And then you have options, right? You can obviously be in that business, or maybe you want to do other ventures, other investments, other things like that as well. So I think these are some of the key identity shifts that need to happen and once you do them and understand the beliefs that support that, I am or I have beliefs that support that identity, that's when the real shift will happen and go, okay, this is what my time is best focused on.
Yeah, and it can be difficult for some people starting out in business to make those shifts. I call it leveling up, like you're leveling up the org chart, because I started as the developer and then you go up and you become the architect and the designer. But then you're the business owner and the sales and the marketing and the support and whatever else it may be. But it's knowing the best way to do it is, where should I spend my time? Where is the money that I would be earning best, like the time that I'm best spent and the money best spent for my time within the business? Am I better off doing a development, or am I better working on a solution where I can spend 2 weeks, but now I've got 6 months of work out of it, rather than spending 2 weeks doing the work? And then it's, all right, if I go and try to do lead prospecting and sales for 2 weeks, how many of those other opportunities does that then snowball into and cascade and then grow the business? I think the biggest challenge is having people step away from the business and having it run like they're not there, so it can be investable. Because an investor doesn't want to invest in a business where it's going to fall apart if the owner steps away.
Yeah, I agree, mate. And it's hard, right? Because there's always the thing in the back of most business owners' minds saying, no one can do it as well as me, right?
I say it every day.
Yeah, I know. And it's true. You know why? Because we're all unique. No one's going to do it as well as us, right? No one has the exact same experiences that we do and skills. So once you realize that, it's like, okay, well, I'm happy if I get someone else that can do it 80% as well as me, whether it's speed, quality, whatever, right there. Because 100% of me is not as good as 180% of me and somebody else, right? And then obviously keep cascading it up there. So I think you've got to let go of the ego, be okay with some errors happening, or not being as fast, or not knowing exactly what and then the key thing is to set up the systems and processes so that you minimize that, right? So that the experience is still great. And then obviously finding people that are a culture fit. You talked about culture earlier, right? Of everything like that there, which is an important piece, because it's not just about the skill. You could find a lot of developers out there, right? But you want someone that has a good positive attitude, right? And all these other factors, similar values, that they're going to love working, together with them. So I think that's the other important part about finding the right people to do it. Because if you have a bad apple, or a toxic person, that can affect, the whole organization, and you're wondering why, it's not performing. So being important in that hiring process is really key too.
Yeah, I think if you're familiar with Gary Vee.
Definitely.
You would be, yeah. He says it really well. It's something that stuck with me is, people get upset when the other people in the organization don't care as much as you do. But the best way he phrases it is, they don't have the same skin in the game. You own the business, so you're always going to care more than anyone else that's brought in. You own the business. You get the benefit from it. They don't. So you can't hold that or your expectation of yourself and marry that against other people and compare their output to yours, just simply because they don't get the same benefit that you do of owning the business. Yeah. Having that in perspective makes you realize, all right, even if they can't do it all the same, and they don't stay up all night or think about things the way I do, that's the reason they don't.
Yeah, it's a great point. And if you're starting to think like an investor, right? Like let's say you're wanting to step away from the business more, and maybe you've got someone higher up, like an operations manager, or ideally like a general manager or CEO or someone like that that could run the business, then you could potentially get them to buy into the business and get a small portion. Maybe they have a 10% equity, or it doesn't matter what the percentage is, right? But if you really want to do that, because all of a sudden they've got skin in the game, right? Like just
Yep.
like you said. So now, if you're wanting to do other projects and other things, you know, whether they buy in and it pays off over time, or you give it to them, however you structure that, then it's a very different ball game. You know that they're going to be wanting to do the best for that business. So that's always a good area. Some people do like employee share schemes and things like that as bigger businesses happen. So they do have skin in the game, you know, even for smaller employees like that. So that's another way that you can do it on a very micro level. So they have this little micro share in the business, but then that, oh, I got to share in the business. I want to do well. So there's ways of making sure that you can get people involved. It doesn't always have to be like that, but it's how you drive the team, the standards that you have, and the leader that you are, so that people want to go, yeah, I want to follow you. Because most people out there don't like their jobs necessarily, right? They don't like the
Yep.
managers, the leaders that they work for. They don't like the culture. So if you can create an environment where it's a great environment where people love working there, even without equity, right? Then you're going to have great people, right? That are going to want it as well. So that's really key.
Yeah, most people, the job is just the job. They go, get up, go to work, come home, forget about it. That's the approach they have. So you have to surround yourself with the right team, the right people to support your business, who want to be involved and get into the journey and want to have skin in the game. Because you'll have people that don't want to have anything to do with that. They don't want the further responsibility, or they don't want to work harder. They just want to do what they do. But you have to have a mixture of everyone as well, because you can't have everyone the same. It doesn't work either.
Yeah. And there's a couple of tips that I can say, right? So, you know, when you're hiring people, number one, as I said, you got to ask these other questions apart from the skills. It's like, you know, what is their attitude? What are their values? Now, you don't necessarily ask that directly, but you're asking questions around that and okay, what are they like? Are they more of a detail person? Are they more of a different type of person? What do they value more? Personality profiling, like DISC profiling, is a really simple one. DISC, you probably know DISC.
Yeah, we've run it a few times.
Yeah, it's a really simple model, right? You know, D for dominant, I for influential, S for steady, and C for conscientious, or the detail sort of, competence side. And you can, when you start getting good at it, you can read people normally anyway and see what they normally are. But ideally, I would get you to get them to do a DISC test. And a lot of them, there's a lot of free ones out there online, or you could pay a little amount, because then you can understand how do they naturally are. And there's two types. You've got like your standard, and then you've got an adapted DISC as well in a work environment, and that can change with people. So you got to see, okay, with their DISC profile, are they going to be the right fit for the role that you want, right? So that's really important. Like for you, if you're hiring a dev person, you want them to have a high C, because you want the high analytical details if they're coding, right? And things like that.
Yeah, most of our developers are on the CS.
Yep.
And their adaptive or the stress state, those spike, and the other two drop even further.
Yep. Exactly, because they're in the adaptive in work, so they know they have to put them up. And the S for the steady, they just keep going forward, detail, and keep moving forward.
Don't like
that,
environment changing, consistency, and just work on things.
Yep, exactly, right? Perfect for a developer when you think about it like that. Whereas as a business owner, now whether you have a natural high D, but for me, my D is not necessarily the highest, but it adapts higher in business, because I know I need to increase my D and make stuff happen, get results, right? And I have a very high I. I is my highest, right? The influential side, more outgoing. So it's understanding, how all that works in there. And so I recommend doing that. And then also, sometimes you've got a lot of people is maybe even getting a video, like to get them to introduce themselves before they have an interview. That's one thing. Some people even do like trials, a day trial, a week trial with someone, like before, like they take a week off work, if like something like that, if it's a key position. So understanding how to, get them have a trial, or create scenarios where you can really test their skills. Because just because they say they can code C+, right, or whatever the thing is, right, in the job that you want them to do, doesn't mean that they can do it, right? So you might want to give them a little scenario and go, hey, I'll do this, and puts a few little things in there that could be roadblocks, and see what happens, right? And everything there, so you can actually test their skills. So these are all the things that you can do beforehand, so that not having as many interviews, and you're picking the right person as best as possible for your business.
Yeah. Whenever we've been hiring, I don't even ask questions about the programming. And like we don't run the skills test. It's just talking to them about how they would solve problems to understand did they have that analytical brain and can talk about what they've done in solving a problem. If you can do that and you can fit with the culture, the skills the programming you can learn as long as you've got the basics and you know what you're doing. Like it's not all about just being able to the technical skill, unless you're in a very, very specialized niche.
Yeah, completely agree, mate. So important.
So, what are some of the key things when your clients engage with you about like, all right, I've got a business. If I'm looking to grow or I want to start stepping out of the business and have that be a vehicle that can potentially be investable, what are some of the key things that you advise those clients to start looking at and start turning on in different structures and processes?
Yeah, so initially we look at the strategy side, which is like understanding the business model. So is the business model scalable right now? Like what are your services, products? How are you offering them to people? So whether there needs to be adjustments or things added there. So we'll look at that to make sure it's a scalable model first. Let's assume that that's good, right? In the way that that is. Then obviously we'll have a planning element, but then it's all about the branding and the marketing and the sales. So what is your brand? What are your assets? Like how is the business positioned? Are you positioned as the low cost option or are you positioned as the luxury option or somewhere in between, right? So that's really important because as you want to grow, you don't want to be positioned as the low cost option. I'll just say that, right? Because you're not going to have any profits and the business probably won't be there. So how high, whether you go luxury towards the top or you go a little bit lower, that will be important because as you start to hire people and get bigger, you need more margin in there to be able to pay for them if you're going to step out, for example. So the positioning is important of that brand. We need to do a rebrand. And then looking at the marketing and the sales, like how are you getting leads? Are you just getting leads through referrals? And everybody loves referrals because, there's a lot higher conversion rate because they're warm. But a business can't just rely on referrals because what happens if the referrals dry up for 3 months, right? Then, you don't have a business, right? So understanding that, I like to think marketing is like a chair. A chair has 4 legs, most of them anyway. So have at least 4 ways of attracting leads into your business. So referrals may be one of those legs, right? So maybe you're running, I don't know, Meta, Facebook, Instagram ads or Google ads, or maybe you've got partnerships, which is a really big one, right? On getting partners where you can, work together or they can, feed you people, things like that, where you're doing joint options. There's a lot of different ways of getting these organically, right? All these other areas. So going to events, there's heaps. So understanding how you do that and creating systems around this so that you can have more of a machine and almost like have a tap where you can turn it off and on when you want to ramp things up, but at least get a consistent flow of leads, and understanding the sales process, like that's going to be working well, and maybe need to hire people. So once that deal phase that I talk about, like once you've got that working well and the business can grow really well, then it's like, okay, now we got to look on sort of the back end. My deliver phase is the numbers, the systems, and the leadership. So what are we measuring in terms of the numbers? It's not just Xero or MyOb in terms of the financials. Yes, we need the financials, but we need to understand cash flow. We need to understand like all the marketing metrics, right? That lead to the sale, all the things on the back end. So there's a lot of numbers. Like, are we measuring that so we can improve it? What gets measured gets managed and gets improved. So measuring those numbers in a lot of different areas, and then the systems, which is obviously big on your side, is that's software or processes, everything like that. So what do we have right now? Do we have the right systems that allow us to scale? Like some people might have, no offense, but they might have like MailChimp as a CRM, right? Which is like a free CRM, but it's not very scalable, right? So it's like you got to be like, well, we need to change CRMs. We need to get to something that's going to allow us to get to that level so you can take a step back, etc., like that, and look at the options, right? Or whether they want something custom built like from you guys, right? Depending on what the business is, or there might be something off the shelf, right? So depending on that business is really understanding the systems and putting all the systems and processes in place so everybody can do their job and cross do their job. So anyone can just walk into another job potentially and do it. So once you have that, then the business is not relying on if anyone leaves or comes or has holidays or is sick, then it's really powerful. So we definitely build the systems, a very key part. And then, the last one's leadership. So we talked a bit about it before, is we can't do it all ourselves. And as the business owner, we have to be the key leader of leading others that want to stay there. And then obviously depending as you're growing, is creating other leaders, within the organization too, so that they can lead others and, leading from the front, and, just really understanding who the people are and having a set of standards and a ways of being things and emotional intelligence, all these things that come with being a great leader. It's not just about the KPIs. That's a manager, right? It's about the person, right? As a leader there as well. So these are all the things that we work on. And then as the business is growing, as we're managing the numbers, as we're seeing where it is and we're getting hires and we're planning for all of this as we go on, it's like, well, now I could step away from this business and get, a general manager or someone in there. We've got the money for that, and I can do something else. And maybe you just want to leave it as a cash cow and you have that on the side. You just strategic in the background and do other things and start other ventures, do some other investing, travel, who knows, right? That's the ideal part. So that's how I work with people, no matter sort of what stage they're at. Ideally, they've got some traction, but that's the key areas. And once we get that right, then yeah, maybe you get a big exit and, people spend millions, tens of millions, whatever, hundreds of millions sometimes, depending on the business model.
Get to that.
Yeah, that's powerful. I know a friend of mine, his brother was co-founder of Leonardo AI, which and 2 years they built it and sold to Canva for like hundreds of millions of dollars, right? So 2 years, that's how past the development software AI space is now, right? That was unheard of to be able to do it that quickly before, and there's a lot of risk there. But this is the possibilities, right? If you back yourself and you get the right team, the right systems and everything else like that to get to that next level too.
Yeah, and it takes people a lot of time to learn that on their own. And that's where having those mentors or advisors and people that you can talk to can help you accelerate that journey. And that's why we started this podcast. You can share these nuggets, and I don't know how many pages on those people can write from just that talk you just gave then. But I'm sure you've probably learned the same thing along in your podcast as well. There's all this information you can give to someone that can help them accelerate that journey just by listening to all these different people that you speak to.
Yeah. And the key thing that's missing, right, is implementation, because I can teach the same thing to 10 people and I'll get 10 different results, right? And number one, it's likely because of their mindset. There's different things that hold people back, so we need to upgrade that mindset. The other thing is how well do they implement? And this is where like one-on-one coaching and because the stats, I did it with my MBA. If you just try and do it yourself, you will complete it like about 20% of the time of what you say you're going to complete. But if you have a coach mentor, you meet regularly, you're invested, everything like that, you complete it 90% of the time. That's a 4.5 times the output, right, of doing it, which is huge, right? So the momentum effect of that, of doing that quickly, is how you can get real exponential growth. So understanding that it's hard to be accountable to yourself, right? Because especially as the entrepreneur, the business owner, you're not accountable to anybody, right? Someone in a business is, because they're accountable to you or whatever like that, but you're not. So having somebody external and doing that and understands, where you want to go is really key. And when you start to implement those things, that's when, the true thing happens. Because the old school saying knowledge is power is not necessarily true. It's potential power. Implementation of the knowledge is power.
Yeah. And being able to successfully execute.
Definitely.
Well, Athin, it's been a great chat and episode of the podcast today. If anyone wants to reach out and find out more about yourself, how can they do that?
Yeah, definitely. You can find me like on social media everywhere, Athin Cassiotis. There's only one of me, but the key one is my website, athincassiotis.com. I'm sure it'll be in the notes. Find me there. You can see everything that I do. And I've got my a great ebook that I won a competition for, my 9 keys to business growth mastery. So all of these areas that I just spoke about today, you can get them more detail on them, on getting that for free on my website. Check out my podcast, The Business Growth Show. There's a lot of great resources on there. And, always happy to have a chat. Reach out, connect with me, see if I can, whether it's working together, whether it's me connecting you to somebody else, helping you on your journey in some way, always there to help others. And, hopefully we'll get to chat or maybe come to one of my events or something like that, mate. And I just want to say, Anthony, thanks for a great interview, mate. You're a great host, great conversational podcast as well, mate. All the best with it as well. I look forward to interviewing you too soon.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I'll see you on your episode next. Thanks.
That's it.
Bye.